Well, hello and welcome to episode 19 of the EnglishAnyone.com Power Learning Podcast. I'm Drew Badger, the co-founder of EnglishAnyone.com. I'm an author and an English speaking confidence expert, and in today's episode, I am answering your questions. Last night, I emailed all of my free Power Learning members and asked them what questions they would like to have answered about me or Fluency or anything else they'd like to know. And I got a whole bunch of questions, so I spent this morning going through all the questions. Some of them were pretty common and others were a little bit unique. So I'm going to go through a couple of different ones, a couple of different kinds of questions, and then hopefully this will be a regular kind of thing. So in not just making my own presentations and talking about ideas and theories about language learning, I'd really like to feature more of your questions. So I'll make a note about this now. If there's anything I don't answer or there's other things that you'd like to know about, please comment down below if you're watching this on YouTube or if you're listening in iTunes, and you can also visit to download this podcast at EnglishAnyone.com. Again, this is episode 19. Well, let's get right into it. I got a whole bunch of fantastic questions. I'm going to begin with one grammar question from a Master English Conversation member. And I thought this was an interesting question, and I don't usually do kind of specific grammar things, but I thought this was a good one that maybe a lot of students might be struggling with. So I'm going to begin with this first. And this is the difference between going to and supposed to. So as an example, I'm supposed to go to a party tomorrow, or I'm going to go to a party tomorrow. Now, what would be the difference here? If I'm supposed to go to something, usually that would mean that maybe I should be going, but I probably won't. So as an example, I am supposed to be going to meet my friend tomorrow. I'm supposed to meet my friend tomorrow. And again, we would blend the sound, sposed. Sposed. I'm supposed to meet my friend tomorrow. I'm supposed to meet my friend tomorrow. So we say it much faster. We don't really say supposed to be. We just say sposed. Sposed. I'm supposed to meet my friend tomorrow. Now this would mean I'm supposed to meet my friend tomorrow, but I have something else that I have to do. So I probably won't be able to meet him. So it's a plan that I have. I'm supposed to meet him, but I probably won't. Now, if I'm going to meet him, again, I'm blending this also. I'm going to meet my friend. I'm going to meet my friend. I'm going to meet my friend. If I'm going to meet him, I have a definite plan and I will absolutely meet him unless something amazing happens. So supposed to just means you think you're going to do something, but you probably won't. So in the case of the weather, it's supposed to be a nice day tomorrow. So maybe I heard from one weather report the weather is supposed to be nice tomorrow, but actually it's not. So maybe I had heard that, or it's a plan, but it's not definitely going to be something. But if it's going to be sunny tomorrow, it's gonna be sunny tomorrow, then I definitely know, okay, I can have a picnic outside. It's going to be sunny tomorrow. We often use something like supposed to talk about things in the past. So if I was supposed to meet someone tomorrow, the plan was for me to meet them, or I was supposed to meet someone yesterday, the plan was for me to meet them, then I actually would have done that, but I actually didn't. So if I was going to do something or I was supposed to do something in the past, again, we have a plan, but we might not actually do something. The future is more important when using supposed to and going to. Just remember that one, the going to is a little bit stronger than supposed to. So if you definitely will do something, you are going to do it. But if you are supposed to do something, maybe you should be doing it, like you're supposed to be taking out the trash tomorrow, but actually you don't really plan on doing that. So that's for Seiji, and that's the difference between going to and supposed to. So everyone, so not just Seiji, but everyone listening to this, anytime you learn something new, you want to activate that grammar or that word. You want to use that as soon as possible so you can get it into your brain. It's the same logic, the same idea as when you're meeting new people. So as an example, I'm going out and playing basketball. I have actually two different teams that I play with locally, just groups of people that get together to play basketball, and I've got to learn like maybe 30 new names. So as soon as I start meeting people, and I again have to ask them sometimes, what was your name? Could you tell me your name again? But it's important for me to start activating that name, to come up with a way to remember it using a mnemonic, as I talked about in the Power Learning video series, or I can just start using the name over and over again. But the point is to activate what you learn. Are you going to activate it? You are supposed to activate it, but you are going to activate it. You are definitely going to activate it. All right, we've got a whole bunch of more questions, so let's move on to the kind of bigger things about fluency in general. This next question is from Mario, and this is actually from Facebook. How did I get the idea to ask people to ask me questions about what I'd want to learn or what they'd want to know more about? Now, this is an interesting thing. You know, maybe I think I'm a smart guy, but there are actually plenty of things I don't know. And that's why I ask lots of students what kind of things they're really interested to learn about. Because fluency and English learning, there are so many different pieces to it. There are lots of things you can study and learn. And if you don't have focus about those things as a learner or a teacher, it gets really difficult and confusing. So I tend to focus on, I'm specifically focusing on usually kind of learning techniques and how to get fluent in English faster. So not just learning a specific grammar point or teaching you some words or phrases. I want to give you specific techniques that you can use to learn a whole bunch of phrases or words or grammar really quickly. So that's, Mario, why I decided to ask people, and I will continue to do that. So it helps me focus my lessons and helps me decide what things I'll create lessons about, or even to talk about in something like a podcast episode just like this. This next question comes from Tigiste, and hopefully I'm pronouncing that name properly. Now, this question is a really interesting one, and it's something that affects lots of learners all over the world. And this is the problem of having some thing that you want to say, but when you go to say it, it just doesn't come out properly. So how do you remember something, or how can you actually make the words come out? Because you can kind of know what they are in your head, but as soon as you're saying them, you have to, sometimes they just kind of disappear, or you get stuck, or you just can't find those specific words. Now, this could be a problem of confidence. It could be a problem of memory. It could be a problem of just kind of training in general. But what I always recommend students in this case is that you have to train yourself over and over again to be automatic. And when you are learning something, it's just like training for a martial art. And in this case, you would be practicing one punch over and over and over again. And really the same thing I tell most learners, and really the same thing that I practice for myself, is that I would much rather know fewer words, but actually be able to use them automatically when I speak. So sometimes I don't mind telling people, oh, could you tell me what that word means? Or I've never heard that before. I don't know what that is. Could you explain it to me? And if you are kind and nice about it, people are usually happy to explain something to you. But the few grammar tenses or something like that, when I was first beginning to learn Japanese, these are the things that I really wanted to master. So instead of trying to learn a whole bunch of information, but not use it properly and not use it automatically in conversations, I really wanted to have something, a kind of toolkit. So I wanted to have one grammar point that I really know how to use, like the past, like the simple past. And then I really master that, and I practice that over and over again until it becomes automatic. And then I can understand the patterns and how to use that with other people and then other phrases as well. So I can begin building off of those things. So really the best advice I can give you here, especially if this is a problem of not being able to say something automatically, the best thing I can advise is that you really have to kind of contract the things that you're learning. Try to learn less, and then you can actually take those things and really do something magical with that, which is master those specific things. Because once you do, that will give you a foundation to learn all of the other things and then really be able to have much better conversations. And the benefit, again, is that it will all come out automatically. When I teach in Master English Conversation, I try to limit, this is about maybe 100 to 150 new words and phrases each month. So I try to keep it kind of challenging, but again, that's only a few words or phrases a day if you really take time and go through the lessons. So I really want students, all the members in Master English Conversation, to remember all of the words and to really take time to master those things. You may go through the lessons quickly, but if you don't take the time to master them, then you're just wasting your time. So take your time and really go through and learn lots of things, but make sure you master them before you move on to something else. And that will help you use them automatically and not get stuck in conversations. The next question comes from Vi, and this is, how can I stop thinking about grammar rules when I'm speaking in English in conversations? Well, the easy thing to do here, and it's a quite challenging thing actually if you've been learning kind of the traditional way for so many years, but this is to start learning everything, number one, in English, and then number two is to actually learn the grammar by understanding the meaning of a sentence, as opposed to learning the grammar rules and then trying to use those in sentences. Now, when I used to teach little kids, I would do something like very kind of simple explanations of things, and I would just, instead of actually explaining how the grammar worked, I would explain a situation by using contrast and other simple things that make it really easy for the brain to understand the grammar or whatever, the tenses or anything like vocabulary really easily. So what you should be doing, again, number one, is learning everything in English, and then number two is not studying grammar rules specifically, but understanding how grammar rules work by kind of seeing how they work in the real world and then contrasting those with other grammar tenses that you already know. As an example, when I teach things in Master English Conversation, one of the things we do to get students to help them remember all of the grammar tenses that they're learning is we will contrast stories that are told in different tenses and by different speakers. So this month we're actually working on the past perfect and the present perfect. And you can actually take the same story and then use the past perfect and the present perfect and the future perfect continuous and all of these long, crazy words that you really shouldn't be trying to remember. I add them in the lessons because sometimes people like to look them up for themselves. But really the point is, again, these two things. Number one is to learn everything in English so you're not translating things. And then the second thing you really have to do is to understand the meaning of words and grammar points without trying to learn about a specific formula for making a grammar point. And that's why I don't teach it that way in my regular lessons. Next question is a related one. This is from Joy, and this is how to improve my accent. Now, I will say this, I continue to say this over and over again, but I always have new people coming into the program and asking questions. So your accent, number one, don't worry about reducing your accent. You should really be thinking about what your own English voice would be because, again, there are more non-native English speakers in the world than there are native English speakers. And over time, you're going to see less and less importance on a particular accent, like being an American speaker or a British speaker, something like this. So really find something you're comfortable with. And the next thing that you can do, and this is something that I'm doing this month, I'm talking about and teaching my technique called sound transitioning. Now, sound transitioning is instead of what normal teachers would do, and this isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just kind of difficult for people when you introduce a new sound by itself, like oh, and maybe people don't know how to make that sound because they have to think about it, they have to visualize it, they have to actually move their lips and their tongue and figure out how sounds move. But with sound transitioning, you take a sound that you already know and then use that and connect that to get to the new sound. Now, I won't go into details about that. If you'd like to learn more about it, again, this month in Master English Conversation, this is the June lesson set that I just released a few days ago. I have a whole lesson set about accent improving and improving your intonation using sound transitioning. And this is a technique I really enjoy, and this is something that's helped me become a much better Japanese speaker. The next question comes from Veronica. Now, this is a really interesting question too. How to not forget what you learn. How to not forget what you learn. Now, this is related to the question that I had, or the question that I answered a couple of minutes ago in this podcast. And that is, again, if you're learning too many things, it's much easier to forget them. So lots of people, they get excited about challenging themselves and they want to remember maybe 100 new words a day, something like that. Now, if you can do that, that's fantastic. I can't do that. I'm just not very good at learning a whole bunch of things at the same time like that, because they will go, as they say in English, they go in one ear and out the other. They go in one ear and out the other. And this means I just can't really remember what I'm learning. So I really have to focus on something, and then again, I have to activate the words that I'm using. So it's much better to learn 3 or 5 new words a day and really stick to that. So maybe if you only have 5 minutes a day to practice, just learn 3 to 5 new words or phrases, and then spend the rest of the day thinking about those things, activating those things, writing them down, trying to teach them to other people. That's what's really going to help you. So instead of trying to learn too much, you need to take some things off of your plate. This is another great English expression, to take something off of your plate. Now this is just like a dinner plate. Like if you put too much food on the dinner plate, you can't eat all that. So try to put less on your plate. You want to take things off of your plate that you can't really deal with. So try to focus on less, really master that, and then use that information. It will naturally help you master more things as you connect that information with other new words and phrases that you learn. The next question is from Angel, and this is, I know words, but I can't connect them in conversations. Now, this is an interesting question too, and this is something I'd really like for people to, if you have a similar problem, to join me down in the comments, especially below on YouTube, where I frequently talk with people. If you have questions and comments about this, please put them below. But this question specifically, if you have problems where you feel like you know the words, but they just don't come out, or you're really having trouble remembering things, you just can't quite put them together, I'd really like to know more about why that is, like in what situations they come about, because this is a really interesting topic and a really interesting thing I like to think about. But it would help me more, and I'd be able to produce better lessons for people if people were very specific about the kinds of problems that they have. So again, that's another reason why I'm asking people about the things that they're struggling with and the questions that they have for this podcast. For this question specifically about not being able to take the things that you already know and be able to weave them together or put them together in conversations, usually it's a problem of too much information, or you just don't really have much practice producing longer sentences. So some people, maybe this happens to me even on occasion when I'm speaking Japanese, I will come up with a few things I'd like to say, but I can't quite weave them together automatically. And this ability to weave them together, it's tricky because it requires a lot of different skills to come together. So one of those skills is memory, one of those skills is grammar, one of those skills is pronunciation. So you have to be almost like a weaver to become a fluent speaker. And the best way to do this is really to focus on all of these pieces of the language, like the grammar and the words and the vocabulary and the accent, all of these things, and then that way they become automatic, and the weaving of it happens subconsciously when you speak. Right now, I'm kind of thinking about what I want to say, and I'm a fluent English speaker, so words come out pretty easily. But really what I'm doing is taking ideas that I have and subconsciously weaving them together from all of the previous examples of things that I've heard in movies. And so when you hear people speaking about things, sometimes they're taken from movie quotes or just other phrases that they learned or heard speaking with people. It could have been maybe from a college class or a TV show, all of these things. And these little bits of information, the more you use them and the more you master these things, that's kind of the secret ingredient to really being able to have great conversations where you can weave things together without thinking about them. So I'm still thinking about what I want to say, but when I'm ready to kind of say it or push it out of my mouth and actually make it a real thing that people can hear, that's when I'm letting my subconscious mind take over and figure out the best way to express those things. So I'm still thinking, and even though I'm a native speaker, maybe they don't come out as quickly as I'd like them to, but again, I'm taking little phrases and bits and other things like grammar and vocabulary, and I'm letting them weave together automatically. So the best way to let all that happen, to actually have things come out, to not get stuck when you speak, is to really practice all of these individual things, and it takes time, and it's one of those things, and it can be quite tricky for people. Another question I actually got was what's the percentage of people actually that people get fluent? So people that are maybe learning in a program like mine or like any other language learning program you could use. Now, the answer to that question is, well, it almost depends on the individual learner. Now, I don't have any specific numbers or percentages about the number of people that are able to learn something. It kind of depends. It's like the same thing for business. How many people become successful businesses, or they create successful businesses after a certain amount of time? And there's a lot of failure in that, just like there's a lot of failure in language learning too, because there are lots of different ways to learn. And I think it's quite easy for people to begin teaching the language even if they don't know exactly what's the best way to learn. So as an example of that, I came out here to Japan to teach, and I was in the JET program, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to study Japanese gardening, but I couldn't get a visa to do that. So it was actually it was kind of a necessity in order for me to come to Japan. Now, I really enjoy teaching, and I've found that I really love it, and that's why I continue to do it today. But when you're coming out to like a country like Japan, you don't need to have a teaching certificate or anything like that. So lots of people come here and they don't necessarily have experience being a teacher, but because they know the language, maybe they think they can teach. Now, this could be a good thing or it could be a bad thing, but if you have all these different people that are trying to learn and people that are trying to teach because everybody knows the world's language, that kind of thing, it can be a bit trickier for people to learn as a result of that. And that also affects whether or not people they have good advice, whether or not they can actually become fluent speakers. And incidentally, that's the same thing that happens with business. Everybody deals with money in some form or another every day, and that's why everyone has advice about money. So maybe, and this is a big thing, it's very important to me, that if you want to learn how to become rich, or if you want to learn how to become fluent, you need to talk with the people that have actually done it. That's really the best thing, the best advice you can get, because you will get advice from anyone that speaks English about how to become a better English speaker or how to learn the language. Just like you'll get advice from anybody that makes money or spends money about how to become rich. Now, I could talk with someone like a financial planner, and if they don't actually have a lot of money themselves, I might be wasting my time. They might know some good information, but again, I really want to connect with the people that actually are where I would like to be. So if you're thinking about that and you can actually find people that know what they're doing, you can really improve your chances of becoming fluent and increase the speed at which you get fluent. But you just have to be careful about who you learn with and what the kind of systems are and how those systems were developed. So in my case, I created Master English Conversation because I struggled to get fluent in Japanese. And I really had to figure out what were the best ways to do it. And in my case, I didn't really have anyone to teach me specifically. So it took me a really long time to develop a system, actually many years, to really figure out what was the best way for me to get fluent. And then I started teaching that to other people and continuing to refine the program. And I still, even though Master English Conversation, we are now in our, I think, 30th month. So over 2 years that we've been running the program, it still continues to evolve and change each month. And I'm sure we will go through many different changes in the future. So even though I can't answer that question about what percentage of people become fluent, what I can say is that the people that study with the people that are actually fluent and know how to do it in the same way that the people who learn from business experts that actually have made a whole bunch of money, they have a much higher percentage of becoming fluent or becoming rich than most people do that are studying with traditional methods. The next question is from Ty, and this is how to understand the English on TV shows and movies and news and music and things like that. Now, again, this is a really tricky thing, and this is something that I talk a lot about when I'm explaining to students the value of something like Master English Conversation. Now, basically, you have usually two kind of groups of students. you have the students that have studied the traditional way and they're continuing to study the traditional way, but they don't really get access to the native conversational English that they should be learning, and that's why they don't get fluent. And then you have the other group of students that are trying to watch movies and things like that, but they really struggle and they find it difficult to get fluent because there's just too much information at the same time, too many idioms, too many phrases, too many other things, and if you really don't have someone to guide you through it, someone to show you what all of these things mean, it really can just be very frustrating for you. So either you are learning the native English you should be learning, but it's difficult, or you're not learning that at all. And I'd say maybe 95% of learners are in one of those two groups, probably more than that. Because most of the people I meet, and again, I don't know everybody on the planet, but I've known, quite a few people, and I get, letters every day. I've spoken with thousands of learners from all over the world that experience these same problems. And it's because they're in one of these two groups. Again, just to make it very clear, the first group is the students that they only study things in classroom and they never get exposed to native conversational English. And the other group is the students that do kind of learn by themselves and get exposed to native conversational English, but they never learn it and they never really master it because it's like opening up like a fire hose and it's all spraying out and shooting at you at the same time. So it's impossible to give your brain enough time and space and understanding that it can really figure out what it is you're studying. So if you really want to become a great speaker and you're already studying the native English, what I'll give you now is the way that you can use the Fluency Bridge that I use for Master English Conversation all by yourself for free if you'd like to use that as you learn. The real benefit of using something like Master English Conversation is that all of the work is done for you. So if you just want to learn without having to take the time to create all of the lessons yourself and really work through things, and as an example, I'm a native speaker, and to produce one lesson set each month, it takes me about a week and a half. But if you really want to take the time to learn something, it's going to require a lot of time. So you have to make a choice. Either you are going to use the time that you have and really try to use the Fluency Bridge method to learn the native conversational English, or you can benefit from something like Master English Conversation that's already done for you each month, and then you can actually use that to learn much faster. So if you are not using the Master English Conversation lessons, but you still want to use the Fluency Bridge, here's how it works. Basically, you have to take native conversational English. It could be a movie, a TV show, something like that. But I recommend you start small. Whatever you use, you should take maybe 5 minutes maximum of something. You could take something like a movie trailer or a TV commercial even, or anything that's quite short. And it could be something you read, or it could be something you listen to, like a song, or something you watch, like a movie. But it should be maybe less than 5 minutes if you're going to be creating a lesson set by yourself. Now, the first thing you want to do is go through that and think about what you know and what you don't already know. So watch that and figure out what's confusing to you. And again, you will have to watch it many, many times to separate that information, because you're going to take the information that you don't know already, and then you're going to begin separating that into categories that are easy to learn. Now, I know this sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work when I create this with my team each month, but again, if you want to do this, it's really possible for anyone to do it. It's just more difficult if you're doing it by yourself. So once you have the information where you're separating out the things that you know from the things that you don't know, then you can take all of the things that you don't know and you can separate those as well. So what I usually begin with for Master English Conversation is take the grammar. You will usually hear some kind of grammar, and if it's something you don't know already, then you can really focus on that. Start digging deep into just the grammar by itself. Pick 1, 2, or 3 sentences and then use that grammar. You can try to write it down, listen to it over and over again from that same section of native English, and you can try to take that same grammar and then use it in the past tense, in the future, and try to take it and really play with that language. The next thing you'll have to do is find all of the words and phrases that you don't know, and then you'll have to look up those individually and really try to figure out what they mean. You could do a lot of research online. There are probably videos that can also educate you about specific words and phrases that you can use. And once you go through those, you can go back and start learning all of that information. Now, the research that goes into this, even just from 5 minutes of listening to something or watching a TV show, there is so much information in this that you have to go back and look at all these pieces of information. But as you do that, you will really begin to master them because you're really taking a lot of time and energy and going into something deep like that. Again, you can use the Fluency Bridge method to take the information and break it into pieces and then study those things individually, or you can benefit from something like Master English Conversation where it's already done for you and all of the information, all of the words and phrases and grammar, it's already created and set up into nice, easy, simple lessons, and then you can just begin learning with those. However you study, really think about taking the things that you don't know and then breaking them down into individual pieces. And if you can learn with those that way, it's going to be much, much better, and you're going to be able to master those few things, and that way you'll really be able to see some great results in your learning and fluency. Well, that's it for this episode of the Power Learning Podcast. I've got some construction again around my building and it's kicking up again, so I better, oh no, here it comes. I better turn this off. Anyway, if you'd like to learn more about Master English Conversation and you're watching this on YouTube, you can click on the link in this video or right below it to get a whole collection of Master English Conversation lesson sets. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you in the next episode and back at EnglishAnyone.com, and I wish you a fantastic day. If you have any more questions or you'd like to learn more about the things you heard about in this episode, just comment down below. Oh no, here comes the construction. Bye-bye.